Welcome again, everybody, to Gene and Roger Talk Movies. We are joined once again with Gene's son, Jamey. And just a reminder, this is not Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel. It's just regular old Gene and Roger, along with Jamey.
Yeah, we're dudes from Alaska.
Dudes from Alaska that like movies, and we're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about Ridley Scott's Alien. Came out in 1979. The premiere of this movie was May 25th, but the general release of it was June 22nd. And that's usually when most people saw this. It had the premiere at the Mann's Chinese Theater or whatever, and then it kind of went wide. And this was back in the day when movies were not just released in 3,000 theaters at a time. It was, here's a small theater, and we're going to see how it goes, and we're going to slowly roll it out. So June 22nd, 1979 is when it came out. Gene, what were your first thoughts on seeing this movie?
Well, I do have to say I'm going to give a little background for myself. In 1979, definitely was a kid, but this movie is probably one of my greatest movie experience regrets of my entire life. Because in Colorado, in Denver, they had this theater there called the Cooper Theater, and it was one of those theaters that had a huge screen, like a surround screen. And I saw all the Star Wars movies there, saw a bunch of movies there. And this movie was designed for the big screen. And for some reason, I don't know what, I wanted to see the movie Alien at the Cooper Theater. Big surround, big sound, big screen. But I just never got around to doing it. And then all of a sudden it was gone. And it was definitely a regret because of all movies, this movie was made for the big screen. Just its opening credits, it's just being in outer space and just all the Gothic architecture and then the space scenes and when they go on the planet. This is made for a in-your-face, movie-going, big screen experience. So, and I just kind of regret that. I never had that experience. But nevertheless, the movie stands. It's great. And really love this movie.
Jamey, you probably never, of course, would have had the opportunity to see it in the theater because you're still a young person. Yeah. When was the first time you were able to see this movie?
Yesterday.
Nice.
Awesome.
So good. So it'll be interesting to hear your viewpoints as we go further. I actually, Gene, did see this at the theater, and I did that old trick where I believe my friends and I bought a movie ticket for the Black Stallion or some PG movie or G-rated movie that was playing at the multiplex, right? And then you walk into the movie you really wanted to see, right? Because way too young at that point to get into a R-rated movie, and
Wait, you could just do that?
Oh yeah, see, and that was the cool thing, Jamey. Back in the day, they didn't really care, right? We're talking the late '70s, and so it's here's me and a bunch of my friends buying a ticket for the Black Stallion or whatever crazy PG movie it was in that theater. And then you just walked into the R-rated movie.
You go in the Alien,
right? Yeah,
Predator.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, I was old enough to see Predator, but Alien certainly wasn't. And so we did that, and of course thought we were all breaking the law or something. And anytime the usher would come in, it'd be like, "Oh my God, there he is, right?" You have to freak out.
You'd get caught.
And of course, but nobody cared, right? Yeah, it was just so loose in the theaters at the time. And Gene, you're absolutely right. This movie definitely benefited from being on the big screen, and even in some of the more intense scenes towards the end when Ripley is going through the narrow corridors and all the steam is coming up and all that, really plays well on the big screen.
Yeah.
But Jamey, tell me about because you had to watch it on a little tiny screen. Gene, I think you've got, a 40-inch screen or some tiny
48,
thing.
52, I don't know what it is.
I keep trying to tell Gene to get this 85-inch 4K TV, but he just refuses.
We're not doing that.
Why don't you get that?
It's not happening.
It'd be so much better.
Exactly. And so, Jamey, what was your initial thoughts of this film?
It was very good. It was great. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Good. That's good to hear. Gene, you're raising your boy right.
He likes good movies.
Alien also starred, of course, Tom Skerritt plays Dallas, the captain, of the ship. Harry Dean Stanton, who we all love, he's been in hundreds and hundreds of supporting role.
And he's a supporting cast.
Yeah, he's great in this. Yaphet Kotto is in this, who
Parker
you may remember from James Bond. I believe it was Live and Let Die, where he got blown up at the end. Veronica Cartwright plays a key role in this film. And then, of course, Sigourney Weaver in her starring role
Her
really set her,
breakout,
breakout role really set
Ridley.
her on a pathway. And of course,
Then there's a cat.
yes,
There's
and
a cat who
I'm
plays a big part in the movie, actually.
an amazingly big part. And I am going to do a shout out to Abby Bodie out in Scotland. She was criticizing our little show, Gene, because she was afraid we wouldn't get to talk about cats because there's not a lot of horror movies about cats.
Oh, no. Jones? in
Yeah.
this movie
No,
plays
it's
a-
Jonesy, I think is his full name.
Well, I think Jonesy was like the he's Jones, but they, when you, hey, Katie, like you cute eyes, the name, Jonesy.
You're right.
But I think it's Jones.
Yeah, it is Jones, but of course, like every cat, you have your little nickname for it.
Yeah.
And then also, I can't forget to mention Ian Holm is in this, and then also John Hurt in his probably most famous role, even though he's done thousands of other things.
Yes, Kane. He was Kane.
And so, in talking about Alien, Jamie, this movie kind of moves along at a much slower pace than probably most movies you've seen before. What did you think about that kind of slow developing pace of this film?
It's a good storytelling aspect because you can't tell too fast or just everyone loses interest and stuff. So it's best to just stick to one thing and take it slow through the story.
At any point where you're like, my God, this is super boring, please speed up?
No.
No, okay, that's good. See, Gene, once again, raising him right.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point because I think the movie is Ridley Scott did a great job because the movie's it's focused, because it starts off in space, and almost immediately they get the message, and the message triggers the computer to wake up the crew, and then they think they're getting woken up because they're near Earth, but they quickly discover the planets don't align, the star systems are not right, and they're woken up for a different reason. And then it goes right back to the message. They have to go to the planet to investigate the message. So it's focused, and it moves towards its goal. So I think that even though it's slow paced, because it's focusedness, it keeps its interest.
Right, and I do like the slower pace to it because really the setup is, I don't even know how far in the future this movie is, but they're still out there gathering minerals and ores
Raw
and
materials,
things like that,
yes.
right, to bring back to Earth for this unnamed company. And I just like the fact that it kind of sets up these are just regular everyday Joes out there doing their job, and so you have these scenes that really are allowed to breathe and play out. They're having interactions around, after they wake up, and they're just kind of talking about this, that, or the next thing, not really that important, but it is setting the stage for, these are just regular folks out there doing their job.
Yeah. It's a careful observation on the movie. I think it's a little social commentary because I think oftentimes we think of like the future is going to be like a good place, or it'll be better than the present. Like maybe we'll have some kind of societal evolution. But I think movies like Alien show that no, because even then, clearly that they have advanced technology, clearly way in the future, but they still have societal divisions. The crew, Brett and Parker, the whole beginning part of the movie, they're complaining about their quote unquote shares, like how much money they're going to make, and they're not making their share is not as much as the crew members, who get a full share, and they're getting like half shares. And so it's Parker is complaining, and and they're just like, they don't like the crew members, and and even among the crew there's just a lack of trust, and so no, the future is not some utopian thing at all.
Right, and how telling, of course, that the two guys who are complaining about their shares and, here's this thing you have to go down into the depths of the ship to fix and blah, blah, blah. It's the black guy and the obviously lower status Harry Dean Stanton character as well.
Right. There definitely is that, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so as the movie progresses, though, we discover, and of course, spoilers for the entire film of Alien. My gosh, this podcast is about, you've seen the film.
You've seen it already. We're gonna spoil a lot.
They delicately set this kind of interplay between the Ian Holm character, the doctor. Ash, thank you. And of course, Gene is the guy who knows all the characters' names. But and kind of because they have this really nice snippet of dialogue from Dallas where, hey, where's our usual guy who comes with us on these missions? And there's like, oh, he got replaced by this Ian Holm character, Ash, at the last minute.
Right. Dallas says that. It's that he always travels. He said he would, like in his previous several missions, he traveled with a certain science officer. But just days before this mission on the Nostromo, that science officer was replaced with Ash.
Right, because
the robot. He's
the robot.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah, big spoiler right there. But yeah,
and so I like how they set that up because as I watched it again last night, of course, in preparation for this, and that was the first time in probably 2 decades I've seen this film. And I really liked how they delicately set him up as like, you can't really trust this character. There's the great scene where Ripley discovers, after getting the data from Ash, that, hey, this isn't an SOS from this ship down there. It's a warning not to go there.
Actually, Ash lies to Ripley because she asks him directly, hey, did you run this through the computer? She uses an acronym to check the message, and he kind of nods and affirmative nods. But then she says, oh, I'm going to go ahead and check it myself. And he's like, oh, of course. This is super sarcastic. And then she checks it. Of course, the computer comes back that it's more of a warning rather than an SOS. But it's too late. She wants to leave the ship and go out to the 3 crew members who have gone out to explore this alien ship. And then Ash tells her, no, it's too late. Because if they've encountered a problem, it's too late for Ripley to do anything, which that's not true at all.
Right.
I mean, she could still go out there and warn them and tell them to just turn it right around.
Yeah. And that sets up other scenes later when Ripley is clearly identified as a by-the-book person, and they're trying to bring the John Hurt character back into the ship, and she's like, I'm not opening this door.
Yeah, of course.
And then, of course...
You gotta follow protocol.
Yeah.
You have to follow protocol.
Exactly. You're trying to follow the protocol, and she's trying to protect everybody, and then who, of course, just overrides that and opens that dang door? It's
Ash.
It's Ash.
Yeah, well, it just makes common sense, too. I mean, there's an alien life form attached to the face of Cain. You just let that in the ship? Really?
Right.
Really?
No, you're not.
No.
You're not supposed to.
But Ash's reasoning is, well, he's going to die. Well, and then Ripley comes back, well, then if you let that thing in, we're all going to die.
Which is pretty true.
Yeah, which is really true. They almost all die, right?
Well, and that brings me to the point of the Veronica Cartwright character.
What was her name?
It was
I didn't write. I didn't write down.
Yeah, no one ever writes down the Veronica Cartwright character because she, out of the entire cast, her character is the one that has received the most criticism because she kind of goes through her panics and her breakdowns and all of that stuff. But she's also the only character that's like, because when she's in there with Dallas and Ash in the big alien ship. Lambert, there you go, thank you. And she's the only one that says, hey, we should probably just get out of here. Right?
Yeah, I noticed that when watching this again. Is like, on the way to the ship, and the ship is spooky. Mm-hmm. It's really weird.
Big, spooky. It looks like a curved thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard to describe. It's hard to wrap your mind around it because it doesn't fit normal human configurations.
Yeah.
And Lambert's all about, let's go back.
Right. This is not safe.
This is good. Let's go back. She says it multiple times.
She does. And then, of course, who's the only one who comes up with the right plan? It's Lambert. Hey, we should just get on this dang shuttle and get the hell out of here.
Right.
And then that's exactly what ends up happening after everyone else is dead already, of course. But
smartest person in horror.
Right. And so it's really neat how Ridley Scott kind of used that character almost as she is representing what the audience was thinking during this film, right? Is, hey, what are you guys doing going in there? Get out of there. And then here's John Hurt, of all characters. Hey, here's this hole over here after we've just seen this giant alien.
I should go down it.
I need to go down there and see what's going on.
Yeah.
I should go below this layer of mist and see what these eggs are about.
Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, he gets infected by this alien and...
Yeah, and Kane recognizes right away. He uses the word eggs.
Mm-hmm.
He sees them on the floor. There's that mist above them. And right away he uses the word eggs.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
almost, that mist is kind of interesting because my thought was anything that breaks that mist kind of starts triggering the nearest egg to like, hey,
Right.
here's
Hatch.
Here's a
here's
person attached to him,
Yep.
and then like bring back an army or something.
Yeah, here's prey, and so I can make this happen. And then of course after Kane gets the alien face hugger is what they're called attached to him and brought back to the ship, there's another great interplay between Ripley and Ian Holmes' character.
Ash,
thank you. So sorry to the audience, but you'll just have to put up with this. I never know the character names. But where she is in there talking to him about, well, how are things going? And he's looking in the microscope, and she goes to try to look in, and he's like, don't do that. Get away from that.
Right, Jamie and I really noticed that because she goes to investigate, and she's in command. She is doing what officers really should do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lead. And then when she approaches his science section, he turns off all of his screens.
Right.
Yeah. And
It's
then
like, can't see anything. I'm doing.
and then he gives her really kind of like nonsense to be straight up, but just BS answers.
Yeah, and did you notice how when he was giving her those BS answers, he had turned his back to her, and so he was kind of, like he knows he's lying, and maybe there's some weird protocol in his programming where you can't really do that, but he's turning away. And then, of course, this all culminates in probably the scene, well, not probably, it's definitely the scene everyone on the planet who's seen this movie remembers.
Yeah, it's the iconic scene.
And it is the scene where the facehugger leaves John Hurt's face.
Kane,
thank you. And then...
then they're like all eating food and
then,
stuff.
right.
And then
Right, and then, yeah, exactly. And this is an audio track, so Jamey just did this little thing where he threw his hands out from his chest. But it's the chest burster sequence, right? He's been infected by this alien. It's planted a seed inside of him, which has developed and now is busting up through his chest.
It was extremely fast, though. It grew extremely fast inside of
Right, oh yeah, and that's the key with this alien is
the movie
growth.
is, just to interject, but the movie is a little vague on the duration of time there, because it did say that they would need, like 25 hours to fix the ship, and so they fixed the ship. But it seems the duration of time is a little vague to me. So it could have been a few days, but a few days is still kind of quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And so the interesting thing about that whole scene, because it's really the only truly just bloody, graphically violent scene in this film.
Yeah.
And the Ridley Scott, he had informed all of the actors that, hey, here's how the effect's going to work. This alien thing is going to punch up through Kane's chest, and you guys need to kind of freak out and scream about it. What he didn't tell the actors was he was going to just be pumping tons and tons of blood out of that thing. And so the interesting story is if you really go back to that film and watch the initial cut when that alien comes up out of his chest and there's that initial spray of blood and it lands on Veronica Cartwright, and there's this quick shot of Lambert's character just completely freaking out.
Yeah, she's freaked out. She does a great job.
That's true to fear.
And it's a real reaction because the actors did not know that was going to happen, and so
or would have been better to just tell them that there's not an alien going to come out from inside, yeah.
And so it's really neat how Ridley Scott was like, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. I'm not going to tell you the whole story because I want these real reactions.
Yeah.
And it's a real quick cut of it, but that's true fear and confusion on Veronica Cartwright's face there, Lambert's face there. And then, of course, another indication in that scene is of Ash's conspiracy, I guess is the way to say it, is the Yaphet Kotto character
grabs a knife,
and you could probably just plunge that right in there and solve the whole movie right there. And then Ian Holmes is like, no, don't
do it. I have to investigate it.
What does he say? He shouts
like, no, don't. I probably have to do science stuff to it, experiments.
I think he says just don't touch it.
Yeah, the dialogue,
I know he says that, but just it's probably what he wanted to do. Science stuff.
And so then this little alien scurries away, and then, now they've got this bigger problem on their little spaceship than they were hoping for.
Right.
I don't think it was that little of a spaceship.
Well, no, you're right. That dang thing was huge. Of course, it said early on what they're bringing back 200 million tons of ore or something crazy like that.
Yeah, 23 million
23
tons
million,
of ore, yeah,
you know,
which
so,
is a lot.
Yeah, giant ship. And so then they've got this big alien on there, or this little alien. They think it's a little alien. And this leads us to, you know, and I mentioned this in some other things, but I really hate jump scares. I think it's a cheap thing to do.
It is. It really is.
And sometimes they can be effective, like when we were talking about The Thing. That jump scare, very effective, set up very nicely.
Wait, what jump scare was that again? Oh, right.
The blood, right?
Yeah, blood.
Grady's holding the...
But I do have to give credit to Ridley Scott, because out of all the jump scares you could possibly do, and keep in mind we are in space, is a damn cat jump scare.
Yeah.
They're thinking it's the alien. They're like getting ready to like do it, and then it just shows the door opens, the cat shows up, and you're like, meow.
And my question to you, Jamie, is: it seemed to me like that was a locking cabinet that cat had somehow got himself into, and so the door was not just free swinging, because there's the sequence where it's like, oh, open it, and he's got to hit the top of it to open it.
Yeah.
How did the cat get in there? I mean,
it's
what's
a cat.
going on, right? Yeah, exactly. So but that was the first real Jones sequence there.
Right.
Where, okay, they've got this cat. He's on board. It's space. He's freaking everybody out. But that leads them to have to go find this cat, because they don't want their little motion detector thing that they've put together to be picking up the cat when they're trying to catch the alien.
Because they could think it's the alien, but it's the cat, and then they actually shock the cat or kill the cat or something.
Yeah, and it's a Brett. Brett, even though he's a skilled engineer, and he really is kind of like almost the head of the engineering team, he realizes right away, because they have a net to capture this little alien creature, but it was a cat, and then he releases the cat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the other guys, Parker and Ripley, they're visibly mad.
Right.
You know, at Brett. For releasing the cat.
He released the cat.
And then he didn't kind of know, like, what's the deal? He says, just the cat. Mm-hmm. You know, and then it's like, no, what are you thinking? We got to track it again. So then he goes out by himself to find Jones. And
Which
then he
is
goes
a dumb idea.
Yeah. You always wonder, like, in horror movies or movies like that, sending people off by themselves.
And why? If you know there's a monster or like alien or like a really creepy, spooky guy, why go alone? At least bring at least 3 people.
Yeah.
Well, you're thinking, like, at that time they think that the creature's little, and so and how far could the cat go?
Yeah.
So at that point, Brett goes off to find Jones, and in here you kind of see like the immensity of this mining ship. Mm-hmm. It has like huge ceilings, these cavernous, you know, rooms where water's falling.
Right, water's falling, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably for cooling, you know. And and then Brett discovers like this skin.
Oh yeah, it's like how snake it's like how snake sheds his skin off. It's like he was growing.
Yeah. Right, he finds that, which should have been a huge red flag.
He should have left and told everyone about the skin.
But again, he's probably thinking it's not that large. You know,
yeah, he's really probably thinking it just like grew like a little bit bigger.
Right, which would be logical.
Yeah,
but no, it's not just a little bigger.
It grew like the size of like 2 people.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that is a really good set piece there. Of course, he's looking for the cat, and then behind him, this much larger shape appears.
Right.
Ridley Scott made a conscious effort to not show too much of the alien until very end of the film, really. And even then, you don't really see a lot of it. Yeah. Because he wanted, design. You know, he was one of those directors and is one of those directors where less is more. If I can get your imagination going to, here's what this thing is, yeah, I've done my job, right? Because your mind is going to create a much more fearful creature than there really is. And so then now at this point, they've realized that, whoa, okay, this thing is growing rapidly.
Right, it kills Brett.
And is a much bigger threat than we thought. Then, of course, that leads us to another standard horror film thing, or even action film thing, is, oh, hey, it's in the air ducts. We've got to go into these giant air ducts to try to get it, right? And that actually is one of probably the most intense scenes in the film, when Dallas decides that, okay, we're going to go into the air duct, or I'm going to go, Dallas, I'm going to go into the air duct with this flamethrower. And we're going to track him, and we're going to shut the vents behind me as I'm going through each stage of this ship to find him. And it's a really atmospheric scene. And Gene, earlier you talked about kind of the Gothic industrial architecture of the ship. No more better illustrated than during the scene through the air ducts there.
Yep.
And so he goes through there. Of course, it turns into your kind of almost standard horror movie at that point, where characters getting separated and going to find it. But there is another good scene there right at the end of the Dallas sequence where he drops down. There's this sonar-like thing going on where she knows the alien is coming, but he's Lambert, but he's on, Dallas is kind of on multiple levels, and the intensity is rising. And then he drops down to another level, looks one way, looks the other way, and then bam, there's the alien right there. And I love that scene because from like my viewpoint, if I was down in that shaft, the last thing I see is this big giant alien with his hands out right there coming at me, and then it's over. The scene cuts to another scene right there.
Okay, but the guy says they found the gun with no blood and no Dallas. And the alien looked like he was having his arms out, so maybe he took him? I don't know.
Well, and that's that.
He didn't, like, kill him there, so...
Jamie, I love the fact that you brought that point up. There is another cut of this film where you actually see what happened to Dallas. And it's much later in the film when you discover what actually happened to him. And you're right. That's exactly what this alien did, was capture him and then kind of cocoons him up and is actually using him as
like a
food.
spider. It's like a spider thing?
Kind of, but it's like going to use him as food for what he's implanted in the Brett characters, Harry Dean Stanton's character. So there's this scene where Ripley stumbles across this, and they cut that out, and I think it was smart that they cut that out.
It was smart. It would have been a diversion.
Yeah, because it's right at the end when all of the intense stuff is happening, and she's trying to get off the ship, and it's like it's all set to explode, and then here's Dallas.
Here's Dallas, and he's cocooned up, and there's eggs.
So and it's,
it would have taken away from the movie's focus that I was talking about before.
Absolutely, and that's the exact reason Ridley Scott.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, Ridley Scott cut that scene out. But there is a director's cut of that film, quote unquote director's cut, which adds that scene back in and a couple other scenes. But Ridley Scott himself has come out and said, really, my director's cut is the 1979 version. That's the movie I wanted to make and I wanted people to see. And so, good point on your part there where, because that's exactly what happened. But in the context of this film, no, he's just dead. They've killed him.
He's dead.
Yeah, he disappears.
Right. And now the one other interesting thing I want to point out too, or maybe it's not so interesting, but Jerry Goldsmith's score, I absolutely hate.
Oh, really?
And it's actually a beloved score, and I thought
love the music.
I thought it did not work for this movie for some reason.
Well, yeah, we're divergent in that way.
Yeah. When watching the movie, Dad made me pause it a lot because the soundtrack, you said it sounded like the soundtrack from WALL-E, the Pixar movie.
Yeah, it's just like our family loves Pixar movies, and it's an interesting comparison. And after this movie, I watched the movie WALL-E to see if I could confirm my hypothesis. Because I even marked it out at the 26-minute mark of this movie, and then at the 1 hour 36-minute mark of this movie, there are certain music riffs, certain music little pieces that if you're a Pixar, especially a WALL-E fan, you would recognize that these little musical riffs are extremely similar. And it kind of goes along because who is in Pixar's WALL-E and in this movie? Well, it's Ripley. Sigourney Weaver's in both. She is in the movie WALL-E. She is not physically there. She's the voice of the computer of the large Axiom ship. But that voice plays a pretty large role. And so it was just interesting because when I was watching this movie, again, like you, Roger, I haven't seen this movie in years, a decade. But and in intermeeting time, right, I have kids, right, Pixar fans. I've seen WALL-E. WALL-E is probably one of my more favorite Pixar movies. And so kind of, you get to know movies, you get to know the sounds of the movie, and as soon as this movie, like when they're going to the alien ship,
Yeah, there's
and they're
just a,
venturing into the alien ship,
riff thing.
there's a little riff where they're exploring it, and that riff appears super similar in Wall-E. And then again towards the end of this movie, where there's
It's sirens blaring off and stuff.
It's chaos. Everything's falling apart. The Nostromo's computers are going crazy. Sirens wailing.
Yep.
That kind of same siren sound appears in the movie Wall-E. So I know. I don't know if anyone's ever brought this up, but
they're completely opposites. But yeah,
it's completely opposite movies. But I could see movie directors just doing this just for fun because they love movies and just because they can.
Yeah, well,
but they're very, very similar.
Sure, it was intentional with Sigourney Weaver being in Wall-E. I wonder, did Jerry Goldsmith do that score also?
Oh, that's a good lookup right there. That's a good lookup.
Okay, well, somebody look it up and let us know. But yeah, I just did not think this score worked for this movie. The only musical cue that I really liked for this was when they would throw in the ticking clock kind of sound at various points. Other than that, I just thought it was a little too shallow for the overall tone of the film.
Oh, no, I got to totally disagree.
No, that's fine.
Completely disagree, because I think like at the very end of the movie where there's the resolution, the female character survives, and then you go.
And then they're like, she's getting ready for the big sleep, and then they're
there's this like great classical music scene at the end,
and then the alien hand pops out, and then it's like, oh,
no, at the end, but the very end.
Well, that is the very end.
No, when it's over, when the movie ends.
Oh.
Yeah, it goes into this classical music scene at the end, and it's just like, it's really quite emotional, actually.
Right, and I'm definitely in the minority with this, because, of course, it's universally loved. I just didn't think it worked, but it brings up...
it works.
Yeah. Listen to Gene on this one, I guess. But
okay.
So that does segue back into, again... we haven't brought up H.R. I want to say Geiger. I could have pronounced that wrong, but he is the artist that designed the alien look, and he is a well-known artist for these kind of macabre, Lovecraftian designs and things like that. What did you ultimately think of the look of the alien?
It's very iconic and very good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess really that's probably all that needs to be said.
Yeah. I think the first thing that stands out is that its teeth. Its teeth are metal. They look like they're metal.
Yeah, it's metal, and then there's a tongue, and then its tongue comes out, and then the tongue has more teeth.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if that tongue has another tongue and it has more teeth.
Yeah, there's a mouth within a mouth. Yeah, right. What's up with that?
Well, and just the amount of like slime coming off that thing, and just the weird tube-like structures on his back, because you would see those, right? And it's like, what are those?
Yeah,
what are
the
the purpose of those?
Is long and thin.
The long
and it
skull.
has that weird,
yeah. And I just think they did a great job of, our movie's called Alien, and here's something you've never seen before.
Alien. Oh yeah, and in the ship that they go to, there's like a giant alien being looking through like a telescope or a gun thing in the ship, and there's like the hole in his chest, which is definitely the alien coming out of his stomach.
Yeah.
Like the humans, but it's like an alien, and it's like really big, he's decaying, and I thought it looked really cool, and he was like, then I didn't know if he was looking through like a telescope or like a giant gun.
Yeah,
at the
the
ship.
movie's not descriptive on that. You just don't know. Which I think is one of the appeals of this movie is that a lot of this movie you just don't know, like, and you're like you have to fill in with your imagination, like what's going on, and it turns out that ship they go to is not the alien creature ship.
No, it's like an alien ship, and then the alien monster is from the planet that they're on.
Yeah. It was we were Jamey and I were talking about this, like the ship belonged to the alien, yeah, and then somehow the alien got infected with
the monster alien.
The monster alien, but we don't know where the monster alien actually came from.
My idea is that it's from the planet that they went to, that that they're on, and the alien ship like also crashed there because it looks like he was like it looked sideways in the ground.
Right,
so,
it looked like a crash, right?
Yeah,
Not a
it crashed
controlled
there,
landing. Yeah, right.
And then
Very good.
I'm guessing that a face hugger crawled on, got his face, and then got the thing. Yeah, and then it made all the eggs.
Yeah, which brings up a question. Yeah, if the, we'll call them the face hugger creatures, attacked that crashed ship there, did they originate on that planet? Maybe they're from a different planet even than themselves.
Maybe.
You know, because it seems like they can wait a long time.
Yeah,
clearly,
definitely. Yeah, because definitely, you notice the guy's been there a long time. His body's decayed. It's like skeletons.
Right, almost fossilized.
Well, it's almost. There's still a little bit of tissue, but yeah.
Right, clearly it could be almost 1,000 years,
yeah,
hundreds
definitely.
of years. Clearly, yeah. So the alien monsters can survive a long time in that egg status.
Right, exactly. And then getting back to the Ash character, because of course we do eventually discover that there's this big conspiracy.
Right.
A great scene where Ripley gets control of the main data computer.
It's like a
Mother.
modern.
It's called Mother. And she is able to do this override and see that, oh, hey, this whole crew is expendable.
Right.
This
We're
scientist,
probably all going to die.
Yeah, this scientist is here to recover this alien creature and bring it back to the company. And then that leads to the discovery of Ash being a robot. Ash attempts to attack and kill Ripley or subdue her.
Yeah, and so she doesn't get the info out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the part of the ship where you access the mother, you know, it's like she physically pushes Ash against the wall out of her frustration, out of him and the whole situation. And I think that injures Ash a little bit because he starts to
bleed white stuff, which which is robot blood.
Right,
Because I believe we also saw that in Star Trek.
Well, if you saw it in Star Trek, then that's a clear indicator that it's robot.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. But and then I think Ash, he starts to malfunction there, and he starts throwing Ripley around, and
he starts almost killing her.
And then
Parker comes in, hits his head off. He hits his head off with like a magazine, even, I think.
No, he hits his head with like some heavy, like a club or something.
Yeah.
Right.
And his head comes off, and he still's fighting him, even with his head like flinging around on his back.
Yeah, and I was thinking, watching that part again, is like, in a way, it's like that was maybe the most horrific part of this movie. It was that some robot that doesn't have a head.
It still technically has a head. It's just on its back.
It's not attached anymore, but it's attacking you, and then what a horrific thing, and it's spitting out this white liquid all over the place. Right, and how do you get rid of it? Because it's incredibly strong, and it's after you, and it just reminded me that another element of this movie that I think is common maybe in horror movies, but it was especially strong in this movie, is just the element of betrayal, you know, because even though Ash clearly his mission from the beginning was to retrieve the creature, you know, he was their crewmate, you know, and he was a crew member, and that he clearly betrayed them. And yeah, so there's that emphasis of betrayal, that here's somebody that you should trust and that was on your side, all of a sudden, boom, no, not on your side at all. You know, it's a horrible thing.
Right.
You know?
And the interesting story about this whole Ash character, though, is Dan O'Bannon was the original writer of Alien. Dan O'Bannon was a collaborator with John Carpenter on John Carpenter's first film, Dark Star. He used some of the elements from that film for this, but one element he did not use was this idea of Ash being this alien or this robot. And that was done by some other writers in injecting that into the story. And so he always was opposed to that idea of the Ash character being a robot. Because it was
a good plot. It was a good plot story, though.
Right, and I think it actually turned out, no, I'm kind of on the side of these other writers that kind of put that that underlying subplot in there of, yeah, these guys are just pawns with this big corporation. You're totally expendable. I mean, how relevant is that to
Nowadays,
America in general,
stuff.
right? Where it's all about the company and the needs of the company and things like that. But I just found it interesting that, yeah, that was not part of the original Dan O'Bannon screenplay, and it was added later, and I think it actually makes the movie a little more interesting.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, and it's just adds a lot of like tension to the movie. And then when Parker, cause there's a big part use of, they use flamethrowers a lot in this movie. Mm-hmm. You're thinking space and flamethrowers in the spaceship.
It reminds me of how many flamethrowers they used in The Thing.
Yeah, it goes back. Their flamethrowers were in the thing.
Yeah, but they're like outside in the thing.
Yeah.
You're in the vacuum of the space.
Yeah, flamethrowers in a spaceship. But Brett actually created these flamethrowers, so they're not. They were created for this purpose.
Not standard issue.
Not standard issue, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but Parker, he flamethrowers, what's left of Ash.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't come back or something.
Yeah, and he does it because he's just mad. He's just angry.
Yeah, he gets revenge on him. And it's probably also so they can't do a horror movie thing where it's like you thought they were dead, but they're not dead, and then they come up and stab someone in the back or something.
Well, yeah, because like with Ash, after his head gets knocked off, he's dead. No, but then Ripley, she connects, power to Ash's skull and his body, and she kind of resurrects him, and they have a conversation. Mm-hmm. Ripley has a conversation with his almost like severed head, which is like, when watching that now, it's just like, whoa, that's so weird.
I really liked that exchange of dialogue, which I am certain James Cameron ultimately lifted some of the ideas for the Terminator, but the Ash character is talking about as a robot, he really respects this alien. It's the perfect machine. It doesn't have any remorse.
Right.
It just does what it's programmed to do, so to speak. And he kind of has that sly, like, oh yeah, good luck with your little plan, Ripley, And then
yes, you have my sympathies.
Yeah,
and he smiles.
Exactly. Right. And then Parker just is overwhelmed with rage. Not only do I have this alien running around on this ship, I've also got this stupid guy here, so I'm just going to unload the flamethrower on him.
Flames,
right? And so ultimately, as we get towards the end of the film, the tension is ratcheted up about as high as you can possibly ratchet tension up in a movie like this. Ripley, of course, decides that Lambert's plan of getting on the shuttle and getting the heck out of here was probably the right one.
Yeah. And they did not have to get extra stuff because it was just her now.
Yeah. And so, of course, Lambert and Parker end up getting killed off, and I don't know if you wanted to go into any sort of detail on that, Gene.
Well,
it's just I get kind of mad at Lambert because she didn't move out of the way, so Parker could burn it. I just find her kind of stupid.
Yeah, she is, for sure emotional, but that kind of goes along with her character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it does, but I'm still kind of mad at her.
Right. Because they go off, Parker and Lambert go off to grab coolant for the shuttle. And so it's just them two. You think they're heavily armed and they're together, but then the creature goes between them. And then when the creature shows up, Parker and Lambert both see the creature arrive at the same time. But then she freezes, and then she's kind of in the line of fire. So then Parker can't fire the flamethrower, because if he fired the flamethrower, he would have hit Lambert. But she doesn't move. Right. She doesn't get out of the way, and she could have got out of the way. And then he physically decides to attack the monster, but the monster turns around and just kills him.
Takes him.
Right. And then the monster turns back around and finishes off Lambert.
Yeah.
Right. And so you end up, of course, with just Ripley
and the cat.
And the cat, but we'll get to that in a second. And of course, Ripley decides that, I'm going to blow up this whole ship. It's this elaborate self-destruct sequence she has to go through where you're pushing cores down and you're flicking buttons and you're pulling levers and all this stuff. And then it starts this countdown of 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes
to explode, but you've got 5 minutes to turn this thing off if you don't want it to blow up. And then, of course, meow, meow, meow. Oh, wait, the cat.
The cat.
Right?
I gotta get my cat.
And so, talk about a great woman. Ripley obviously is, right? I've just set this ship to explode. I've got this alien that's killed all my friends. I've got to get off this ship. I've got 10 minutes to do it. Oh, wait, I've got to get the cat, right? So
and she gets the cat, and then she goes and finds the alien near the shuttle. So she goes to turn off the exploration thing. Nope, doesn't work.
Right, and I love that.
Well, yeah. If I can interject, I think she was going to the shuttle, but the alien had blocked her path.
Right. Yeah,
and then once the alien
completely.
had blocked her path, she goes back and tries to turn off the destruct sequence.
But it's like she's like 2 seconds short.
Right. She had gone within that 5-minute cutoff, and she couldn't turn it off, and so the ship was going to blow itself up.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop it.
She had 5 minutes.
Yeah,
right,
5 minutes.
and that's the tension I'm talking about. I love that where you set the thing to blow. Now your way is blocked, and so you rush back to try to do it. And they've got all this smoke and steam shooting around. They got a strobe light effect going on, and it's really trying to ratchet the tension up, only to get her back there to not be able to stop the countdown.
Yeah.
And then she's got to go.
And then she's got the cat. She goes. The alien is somehow not there, But yeah, I think she was in the moment. I don't think she thought about that.
Well, and she's screaming and stuff too. So it's like, hey, if you want to know where I am, I'm right here.
She got the cat in, and then she got in. They're getting ready, and then the alien, poop, it's there.
Yeah, and I think that's just a really good sequence of what a horror movie is about. This kind of rising tension. And
Right,
when
definitely
you think,
rising.
Yeah, right when you think, oh, she's going to shut this thing off, and we'll have to deal with the alien another way. Nope, you missed the deadline. Tension continues to rise, until she gets in the ship, and then you think,
and then you think that's it. You think the credits are going to start rolling. Nope, aliens there.
Yeah, and what did you guys think, Jamie? What did you think about that ending where the alien has kind of wedged itself into this compartment? What are your thoughts? Why didn't that thing just straight up kill her off right there? What was the deal? With that?
It was a good little ending thing, but it reminds me of The Thing, because we talked about how it liked to horrify its subjects, So it was like showing off its tongue thing and scaring, and like trying to scare her, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just trying to scare.
Right. I think there was a definite element of the creature having to want to inject terror into its victims, because it did a little bit of that with Lambert, instead of just killing Lambert straight up as it did to Parker or to even Brad. It wrapped its tail around Lambert, and it let Lambert suffer. So I think in this case, the shuttle had left the ship, and it was just the creature and Ripley in the room. And the creature, I think, felt in charge. It's like, yeah, I'm going to drag this terror out as long as I can. Okay. Because I can.
Yeah, I just always thought that was interesting, but, why didn't it just take her out right away? My thought was it was kind of needing her to command the ship a little bit to get it out of there and get it on its way, maybe,
on
or
track
something.
the Earth so he could just go eat more people.
But anyway, so Ripley sees that it's there, and then your true ending, she kills it off, shoots it out the airlock, and blasts it with the engines
and it's probably gonna fling out.
Right, and then the movie kind of ends right there.
But one thing is, like, to interject a little bit, we were talking, Jamie and I were talking, and actually my wife too, because she was watching this with us.
Oh, good for her.
It's like, yeah, I know, yeah, I don't need it. But it's like, why did the creature end up in the shuttle? Did the creature know to go in the shuttle?
But and Ash said it didn't have a conscience, but it was a perfect being.
The perfect being. But again, is it intelligent? But I'm kind of thinking it's more animal-like. And I was thinking the Nostromo destruct sequence. There's at the end of Ridley Scott does a great job at the end, because it's just complete chaos in the ship. It's just loud alarms. There's strobe lights everywhere. There's like steam gushing out because the ship's starting to destroy itself. And if you think about it, I don't think they're really any animals that exist anywhere that like chaos. Right. Loud noises, vibrations.
Yeah.
There are no animals like that. However, the shuttle was kind of an oasis. It was very quiet. It was isolated.
It was isolated, and it's
and
perfect.
I think
the
kind of
just
like
goes in there as the hide and maybe stay away from all the alarms. But turns out that's the escape pod.
That's the escape pod, right? I think that's why the creature was there, and it nudged itself into that little area because it was quiet, it was peaceful, it was away from all that.
It was afraid of the
chaos.
sounds.
Right, and so it ended up he was at the space or the place where he needed to be to survive.
That is you're dead on with that. I'm sure that's exactly why.
Yeah, it's just a creature wanting to escape all that
and
craziness.
So, are you guys aware of what Ridley Scott's planned original ending was?
No.
Okay, so
I'm intrigued. Yeah.
So Gene knows this, but I always rail against studio interference. I think a director has a vision. You let that director produce that vision, and that's the movie you got. This is the one case where I'm going to side with the studio, basically putting the dampers on a director's vision. His original plan for this film was the alien was going to win that battle in the shuttle and kill Ripley, actually decapitate her.
Oh.
And then the last sequence where Ripley's voice is talking about the trip home, right there. Here's the crew that died. The camera would have pulled away to reveal it's the alien speaking in her voice on his voyage towards Earth.
That would be...
Oh. Yeah, in a way, I got to side with the studio on that one because then
I side with the studio too.
It's making a leap of the characters or the monsters' abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely leaping.
Yeah, it's definitely a leap.
Okay, I would have liked it, but maybe Ridley recorded that before she died or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because here we are thinking like we just talked about the creature being kind of an animal, but then all of a sudden it could
speak like a human.
It speak like a human, and it could kind of imitate.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I think it's kind of a late.
This is not the thing.
Yeah. Well, and they sort of get, there's a lot of sequels. I mean, you guys all know this. There's a lot of sequels to this
Predator,
this movie. The only one that's truly great is, of course, the sequel to this one, Aliens.
Which is actually pretty cool because you just add an S to it and boom.
Yeah.
There you go. Good title.
Well, and it was legitimately titled because there's a heck of a lot more aliens.
Yes, and then there's a mother alien. It's more action-y.
Right, and that's the thing. The tone for this film is the only one that's truly just straight up horror.
Right.
Aliens is definitely an action.
It's an action film all the way.
Because you can't really have like lots of aliens in one guy. Have that be like really a horror one, unless they're like really tiny aliens or something.
Yes, that's true. But this and Ridley Scott, of course, didn't get re-involved with the franchise until Prometheus and then Alien Covenant.
Huh?
Yeah, and
it's pretty cool.
Jamie, you're a young guy. If you've seen Alien and you see Aliens,
I have seen Aliens. I actually saw Aliens before Aliens.
Yeah, so you're good with the movies.
Yeah.
You don't really need to see the others.
Yeah.
One of the things that, and Gene, you touched on this, one of the things that makes Alien great, the character of the alien great, is just like you said, you don't know anything about it.
You don't really know what it looks like.
Everything you know about it is just what you're gathering from the film. It's this killing machine. It does this stuff. No explanation as to where it come from or any of that stuff. And
then in the newer movies, kind of just like shows the alien full blown in daylight. I've seen pictures of just the alien in daylight. Like it just ruins it.
Right, and they go back and they're trying to explain how the aliens came about and all this other stuff. And it's like, look, blah 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 is right. Give us a monster. Don't tell me what it is. Just make it do its thing. I don't need to know all this backstory in it. But that's another discussion for some other podcast. Gene, any final thoughts about this film?
Yeah, it's like it's a great ending. I gotta say, I love the music. Really, it fits and it works really well. And if talk about horror movies, I think anyone who likes horror, this movie's got to be top 10,
top 5,
20,
top 3
for sure. It's just great.
Right, and I will give
1979, but it still works.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, who both recommended this film when it came
Good
out.
guys.
And I do want to have a caveat from last week's episode on The Thing. Gene, you were dead on. Gene Siskel didn't love The Thing, but he gave it a positive recommendation.
Yeah.
And Roger Ebert totally hated it. And that's really rare, because usually it was the other way around, because Gene was like, oh, if it's horror, I'm out. But so very good.
There's a split there in that movie.
But anyway, Jamey, any final thoughts on Alien?
Great movie. I really enjoyed it. And good.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, it's definitely a winner, definitely in the top 10, top 20 for sure movies. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will catch you the next time. Bye-bye.
All right, later.
Bye.